All right, let's go ahead and start talking about some motivation, some meditation, and some inspiration. If it's not one of the three, I don't want it. Let's go ahead and set the timer to 1 hour. Let's go ahead and start getting into this thing. Let's get these challenges that we're facing off against, start to overcome these kinds of challenges. So when we start focusing, we start getting into the ability to get within ourselves, we start to overcome the challenges that we face off against on a daily basis. So let's go ahead and start talking about these and how we can overcome them, how we can start getting into the way to where the challenges that we face off against we can overcome. So a lot of times people are not willing to speak their mind. They're not willing to be who they are on the inside. They're not willing to challenge the things going on around them. And so the first place that we start to challenge is within ourselves. The first place where we start to ask ourselves the question, can I focus, is within ourselves. The first place where we start to write stuff down is for ourselves. And so that's why it takes just a little bit, just doing a little bit each day, just getting down with yourself and actually getting down with your own grind. And so a lot of times we feel like we're not in that type of a situation where we can do that until we really realistically look at it, until we really realistically sit down with it. We start to grind on our own, where things become actually real from within ourselves. And so this is how we start to do that. And so just a little bit at a time is how you start to achieve that. And so when you put it as a priority in your day, when you say, when I'm going to start my day, I'm going to start by doing this, what happens is eventually that becomes a part of your daily tasks. But you have to set time aside for yourself. You have to make sure that you have the time for you. And that is where a lot of us lose it. We lose the ability to actually give ourselves that kind of time. And so this is how we start to do that. We start to recognize that focus matters, but it doesn't just matter on a minute level. It matters as a foundation. It matters as an ability to start utilizing it so that we can achieve our tasks. So that means that if you want to read a book and you want to have a book done, set yourself a date. Give yourself a period of time every single day where you sit down with that. Reading is a form of focusing. Writing is a form of focusing. Utilizing the things that we have on a daily basis come from the foundation of focus. And so what other people see when you are focused, when you are truly focused, the reflection that other people see, that is motivation. So the first part of a day, the first things that we should be asking ourselves, is it motivation? Is it meditation? Is it inspiration? So if it's not one of the three, I don't want it. And that is the reason why. And so if you start to write your problems down in front of you, if you start to put the things in front of you, then you can actually flip them around. You can start turning them into positivity. You can start utilizing them to your advantage. You can utilize the challenges that you face off against on a daily basis when you have a foundation built in focus. And so when we start to write stuff down, not just read it, but we actually start to write it down, then what happens is the challenges that we face off against come down to an able mentality. And so that is how teachers teach students. They teach students by putting assignments in front of them so that they can overcome them. They put a test in that place to see if they can achieve it. So with the same kind of mentality, being able to read a book can become possible. Being able to face off against the challenges that you face off against on a daily basis become available. And so it's getting into this kind of mindset. It's getting into the place where you start to be you versus you, where the challenges that you face off against yesterday, today, tomorrow, next week are no harder than the ones that are in front of you. And when you recognize that you can overcome all challenges that you face off against with a focused mentality, an ability to utilize this universe to dominate your walk, to dominate your day, to dominate your week, comes from your ability to have a foundation within yourself. And so, what are some of the tools that we can utilize? So we know that we can read things. We can put things in front of us in such a way that we write them down. We can put them in such a way that we start to understand the reflection comes from within. We start to get to the place inside of ourselves where there's no challenge too great for us to focus through. So this means it's no longer an external. It starts to become an internal. And so the master of focus achieves their dreams. The master of focus sets things in front of them and finishes them. And so that all comes from a responsibility from us being ourselves to ourselves. So it's not you versus somebody else. It's always going to be you versus you. And that can start with the ability to just do a little bit, like starting to write these things down, like starting to put them in a place where the challenges that you face off against you can overcome. Let me go ahead and get you online. You can actually ask those questions out. And so the way that I have found that it's possible is that if I start to connect everything that I do on a day to focus, if I start to recognize that the knowledge inside is sufficient and that what is lacking is the tools, and so it's never going to be about anybody else around you. It's when you don't need the support of other people, where what you're writing down is you, where what you're putting down in front of yourself you start to grind on. The challenges that you face off against on a daily basis come down to you versus you. When you're not trying to compare yourself to somebody else, but you're trying to utilize what you do have. And that means that sometimes you're going to have to shut a door and you're going to have to put yourself by yourself so that you can start to put the things in front of you that matter to you. So how do you start to do this? How is it possible what I'm talking about? How can it start to become a part of your daily task? And so I took a book called The Richest Man in Babylon, and I listened to this book. And inside this book, it talked about 10%. And so if we recognize that we need to give ourselves at least the first 10% of our every single day, then that means that we need to focus on ourselves a minimum of 10% before anything else gets our attention, before anything else has a place to have an effect on you. That when you allow yourself to do this, what happens is the ability to sit down to achieve the things that you want to achieve become possible. Part of doing that is recognizing that preparation is important, that the ability for you to start to write stuff down, to put positive thinking in your mind and around you is available to you, that there are people out there that uplift the mind, that there are people that have focused to the point where other people recognize them as a reflection of meditation, as a reflection of motivation. And so when you start to get to this place where you start to recognize that this universe, the Most High in this universe itself, was created for you to utilize in a way that the internal becomes a manifestation on the outside. So when you start to focus to that point, then things like being able to read a book, like being able to speak things out, like putting yourself in a place where positivity is in front of you starts to become possible. And the ability to recognize this is not going to achieve every single day. It's not about that. It's about being on it to the point where the reflection comes out that this is what I do. I master myself first. I get to the place where focus is a part of my daily being. That I write down things and they start to happen. That when I start to write stuff down, the reflection outwards is coming from within. And so when we start to get to that place, when we start to utilize those kinds of challenges, when we start to get to this kind of reflection outwards, it starts with the simplicity of recognizing how simple it can become. It can start with the ability to choose that every situation can be turned positive. It starts with the ability to write things down. The key of writing things down is that when you write them down, you can see them. And I don't mean just a few things. I mean write as much as you can down about your day. I mean write down the places you went, the people you spoke to, the experiences that you had with those people, and the challenges that you had that day. And then revisit it, and then revisit it, and then master that. Through utilizing this, you're going to start to see that the focus is there. By listening and turning off the news and the radio and putting yourself in a place where focusing on positivity is important. We're focusing on turning everything in your day to a positive, trying to find the most positive outcome in the situation. Then what starts to happen is the tools that we have inside start to radiate outwards. The universe starts to ask you the question if you can truly achieve that, if the test that you're facing off against you truly want. And so that's why it's so important. That's why every single day I talk about focus for the first 30 minutes, because that's what's important. That's what it takes to create a foundation. It requires a certain type of person to get down with themselves to the point where they can focus to that point, where they can utilize and to know the tasks and the goals inside of themselves are achievable if they can write them down. So if you take that same book and you say, I'm going to read a chapter a week, and you start to write this down every single day, and after you've read that part of that chapter, you recognize that you have the part for tomorrow, then the mentality starts to become, over time, that it gets to that place of elevation where that becomes a part of your focus, where the things that are around you start to move out of your way. And so that's why focus is so important. I talk about focus for the first 30 minutes every single day, because that is one of the goals of a mastery of meditation. It is a mastery of oneself. It is a mastery of understanding oneself. And you can't have that without focus. You can't get to the place within yourself without that. And so that's why I talk about this for 30 minutes a day. And so what other types of things do we have that we can utilize? We can listen to positive thinking. We can see that other people have achieved a level of positivity, and they are speaking out how they achieved it, how they got to that place, how they started to overcome their own challenges. Les Brown, one of my favorite motivational speakers, talks about how he ended up achieving success because he wanted it better than anyone else did. He wanted it to the point where he was willing to focus, where the determination became the reflection. So when the results come from you focusing to that point, then even things like reading a book can become possible. You're not surprised when you've read the chapter, because you've prepared your mind in a place of focus. You've taken the ability to see the positivity of paying yourself first so you can do that. You start to take the positivity to write it down beforehand, to start today so that tomorrow you have the ability to see what you have in front of yourself. And when you start to write these things down, when you start to put them in front of yourself, they give you the ability to see the mountain. They give you the ability to see the top of the mountain so that you're not worried about the journey along the mountain. So a lot of people get stopped on their journey because they don't focus on what really matters. They don't put the things in front of themselves so that they can even achieve them. They don't give themselves that ability to focus to that point. So they don't see the foundation happen because they become slaves to somebody else's things. And so this is where we start to recognize that we can get to the place where we start to achieve our own things, where we start to achieve our own being, where we start to get down with who we are on the inside, where the challenges that we face off against on a daily basis, we can overcome, where we can get to that place inside of ourselves where it is worth it, where we get to the place inside of ourselves where there's nothing on the outside that has the ability to stop us. And so that is where focus comes in handy. It is when you start to utilize the things that you do have that this universe starts working in your favor. It's when you start to write things down in such a way that they set you up to achieve, where they turn into the positivities, where you are writing everything down in such a way that when you see it in front of yourself with complete honesty, you see the result before the result happens. I'm talking about manifesting your focus. I'm talking about putting yourself in a place where you can achieve a level of focus where other people are not willing to go. And so, how is it possible with so many people around to achieve this? It is possible because the only competition that you have is yourself. It's only you that can stop you. It's only you that can sit down and read and write and speak and listen to positivity. It's only you that can put yourself in that place where you overcome your own challenges, when it's no longer about somebody else and it's about you, and you can see it in front of yourself. The ability to have an able mentality starts to come through. The ability for it to start to move the things out of the way that are not meant for you starts to happen. And so what does it take for you to start to listen to positivity? What does it take for you to start to recognize the reflection that they are is focus? The motivation that you're seeing from other people is a reflection of their own level of focus. And so that is an ability to recognize that focus is the foundation, that you are the foundation, that you are able to overcome your own challenges, that the things that you go through on a daily basis are an ability to overcome them when you have an able mentality, when you have an able ability, when you have an able ability to go within yourself. And so this is where we go within ourselves. This is where we start to recognize that the tools in this universe start to become utilizable. So when you start to utilize the tools in this universe, you start to get to the place inside of yourself where you can achieve you. So that is a place where you start to light up this world, where the ability to see the mountains that you face off against, you start to overcome. And that's what it's about. It's about building that kind of foundation. It's about getting to that place inside of yourself. It's about having that ability to allow yourself to have time for you every single day that makes the rest of the day worth it. If you do not allow yourself to have time for you, then what you are doing is neglecting yourself from the gifts that you have. It's not allowing you to achieve the things that you want to achieve. So this universe has tools available to you. The same kind of tools that are available to me are available to you. The reflection outwards is not a surprise for the person who's willing to focus to the point where the reflection radiates outwards. So recognizing that it comes down to a place of focus, that what other people call focus, what they see from your level of focus can radiate outwards as determination. It can radiate outwards as strength. It can radiate outwards as a goal achiever, so focused to the point where you are simply doing you, where the challenges that you face off against are you versus you. That is how the things that are not meant for you move out of the way. When you allow the things that are not meant for you to move out of the way, the things that are meant for you start to move in the way. And so how can we start to get to the place where those things move around us, where the universe starts to bend to your thought process? How do you start to focus to that point? How do you get down with yourself to where the challenges that you face off against, you have the ability to make it through? Now, I have created a network, Motivation, Meditation, Inspiration, Yoga. Subscribe to my networks. Start listening to my videos. Start recognizing how the thought process can be utilized in your daily. Answer the question to yourself. Is it possible for me to be myself? Is it possible for me to dominate my day? Is it possible for me to become that level above where other people would go? Because what a reflection of motivation comes from is a focus to where other people wouldn't go, to achieve things others would not achieve because they're not willing to focus. So it's simple. It's getting down with yourself. It's getting down with the process of focusing to the point where the challenges that you face off against daily, you start to achieve. It's about that place that you have to ask yourself if this universe, this universe and the Most High in this universe can utilize you. So when you recognize that this universe was built for you, this universe was built for you to utilize, for you to absorb. And so that's how you can turn it into a positivity. That's how you can start to take this stuff and turn it around. Newton's third law of motion: for each action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So as soon as we remove the thought process of a disabled mentality, where we take an able mentality and see the positive and negative forces in the universe working in our favor, when we start to identify with this universe starts to become your best friend. It's with an able mentality that things start to become possible. The possibility starts to become an ability to the person who's willing to focus to that point. And so it is all within the mentality that brings us to that place where we see if it's possible for ourselves. And it's not when you verse somebody else. It's when it's you versus you. When you sit down with yourself and you start to write things down. When you sit down with yourself and you start to focus into the positivity. When you see everything happening in such a way that it can be turned towards a positivity. And so an able mentality gives the person the ability to reach that level where focus starts to work with them. See, people can get to know you for who you are on the inside. They can get to know who you are truly inside of yourself. You have to search for the positivity to utilize every angle in such a way that it can be turned positive. How can you do that for yourself? And only you know that answer. So it isn't you versus somebody else. It's you utilizing the tools and the foundation of focus utilized from the Most High in this universe in such a way that you have the tools available to you to utilize it. And so that is why focus is so important. So we are our own best friends when we start to focus to that point where we put the things in front of us that are equal and opposite, and we start to see how we can utilize both of them. And so when we start to see this, when we start to get to this place, it's going to require utilizing the tools like the ability to turn off the news, to turn off negative music, to put ourselves in a place where we turn on positivity, where we put focus in front of ourselves, where we give ourselves that kind of ability to ably write stuff down, to ably speak stuff out, to ably listen to the things. And it's never about what you don't have. It's always about what you do have and what you do with what you got. And so there's not a situation where we can't utilize a positive mentality. There isn't a situation where it's not possible for us to take every situation that we have and see the opposite can make an equal, or the equal can make an opposite. So when we can identify and turn everything into an equal, then we can utilize every situation through focusing to the point where that becomes achievable. And so that is the reason why it's important to pay yourself first every day. It's because when you utilize this, when you give yourself this kind of a focus, when you give yourself this kind of a place within you, when you can challenge the universe with an answer of, yes, I can, when you can challenge this universe in such a way that what you write down, other people see as a reflection of the results, when you start to get to that place inside of yourself, where it is possible for you to be you, it is possible for you to overcome your challenges, it's possible for you to go within you, it's possible for you to understand you, it's possible for you to become the reflection on the outside from your level of focus. That's when other people start to call you strong. That's when other people start to see that you are an achiever, that the things that are happening around you are becoming a reflection of your level of focus. So when we start to put a foundation in focus, when we start to put a foundation in the place within ourselves, we start to say it's not because of somebody else or some other situation, that we each individually wake up every single day, and that if it's hard or easy, it's the same. It's our ability to focus through those, to achieve the things, to wake up because we have a purpose, a written, listened, focused purpose. The ability to see this on a daily basis is up to you. It's only you that can get the mentality to have that able mentality within yourself. It's only you that can get to that place for yourself. It has often been said that you could take a horse to water, but you can't make a horse drink water. They have to do it on their own. I'm talking to the person that's in the darkness. I'm talking to the person who doesn't think it's possible because yesterday their companion left them. I'm talking to the person who wants to say that nobody else knows how they feel. And it ain't for anybody else to know how you feel. It's up to you to lift yourself up ultimately for you. And the only way that I know how is to focus. The only way that is possible is for you to recognize that you are a tool in this universe and that you can utilize what you do have. And so I'm telling you how to do so. Start to write stuff down. Start to turn on motivational speakers. Start to put yourself in a place where it starts to happen within you. Listen to these people telling you to put stuff down, starting to speak it out, starting to truly be who you are on the inside. That when you start to have that relationship with yourself, when you truly don't put it on somebody else, when you put it on you, when you give yourself that ability, those types of challenges become very little compared to the result from your level of focus. And so it doesn't matter where you are on the face of the planet. The person who is willing to focus achieves an ability to do things that nobody else is possible of doing. And so when we give ourselves this, it allows us to move a little bit farther. It gives us the ability to go a little bit longer. It gives us the ability to utilize what we do have. The challenges that we face off against, we use what we have inside as a level of focus, as an absorption. And so, as I start to talk about the internal mastery, I start to talk about the internal focus, the process of focus, the process to go within oneself is the reason why the foundation of focus is there. When we start to go within ourselves, we start to recognize that we are a student in this great universe, that this is a tool. When we start to become that kind of student, when we start to go within ourselves, we start to connect our focus within ourselves. We start to get down with the energy inside of ourselves with an able mentality. We start to recognize that focus is the student inside the classroom. And so with the person who starts to go inwards with an able mentality, they start to break down the parts of energy within themselves. They start to utilize this universe in such a way that they become that kind of tool. When they start to utilize their profession, they start to utilize their day, they start to utilize their week from their level of focus, the internal starts to manifest on the outside. And so the person who's willing to go within themselves, the person who's willing to get to that place, the person who's willing to get down with themselves, you can actually definitely see how I am like the Airbender. My channel is Motivation, Meditation, Inspiration.yoga. So I'm talking about meditation. I'm talking about the self-study. I'm talking about being the student inside of the classroom of you. I'm talking about how it becomes possible to have a mastery of manifestation on the outside. I'm talking about how the energy inside of the body can be extracted, how the energy inside of the body can be utilized. Like a student has to go into a classroom with focus. Focus becomes a foundation within oneself. And so, how can we start to get to that place? How can we start to utilize that? And so this is how it starts to become possible. With an able mentality, you start to go inwards. You start to connect the process with your breath. You start to connect the process with your being. You start to connect the process with your ability. With the ability to go within yourself, this universe will start to test you. It will start to ask you if it is possible for you to go within. If it is possible for you to go within yourself. And so when you start to utilize the foundation of the tool, which is you, the focus of absorption inside of yourself, that's when other people see the reflection outwards of that. And so that's how you start to put yourself in a place where you become a mastery. So when you start to get within yourself, the things around you start to happen in such a way that it becomes crystal clear. The light starts to shine brighter because the energy inward has the ability to heat it up in such a way that you can extract it. So as a student starts to read the books inside of oneself, as a student starts to break down the energy fields and the pages inside of oneself, as the energy field starts to become available to you, the challenges that you face off against on a daily basis start to become extracted from that able ability to use the tools that you do have, which means that you have the ability to go within yourself. So the simplicity of the incoming breath, the simplicity of the foundation of focus, of using the tools on the outside, manifest from the process inwards, outwards. And so when we allow ourselves to start utilizing this, it starts to put you like a student inside of the classroom. And so there is a incoming breath. There is a center breath. And so As the student of focus enters the classroom of one still breath, the student starts to extract the knowledge. And so as the center breath gives the ability to have that time for the student to extract the knowledge, the outgoing breath gives the ability to learn and to be tested by that knowledge. So as you start to utilize your external breath, as you start to utilize the ability to be the student gaining the extraction of knowledge within the classroom of you, the ability to liberate yourself, to see past your own opinion, to get to the true knowledge inside of oneself, to heat that knowledge up, to remove the impurities inside of oneself, to give the ability for one to be inside of that classroom, becomes a place of darkness to light. The ability to be in this place within oneself is where the internal connection connects centers inside of oneself, and the ability for the tests and the knowledge to be extracted goes with the external breath. So as you liberate the knowledge inside of oneself, as you give yourself that ability, as you give yourself that place, as you give yourself the ability to overcome those kind of challenges, we start to recognize that it is available to you and I. As we start to go within ourselves, we start to liberate ourselves. We start to read the pages of knowledge within ourselves. We start to get to the place within ourselves where the connection within oneself is available. And so, as one elevates the expansion of knowledge within oneself, which is sufficient inside of oneself, the ability to gain that story, to gain that knowledge within oneself becomes available to you. As you start to liberate yourself from this, as you start to give yourself this, as you get down with the person inside of you, the challenges on the outside become very little, because the light inside of oneself recognizes that the knowledge inside of oneself is sufficient. When a person starts to read the energy inside of themselves, or like I can, read the energy inside of other people as well, they start to recognize that they are sufficient, that the challenges that they face off against were tailor-made for them to see the story in the challenge. So gaining this kind of student and teacher relationship inside of yourself is definitely important. Getting to that place where the able mentality within oneself is a blessing makes us understand that it is an available ability within oneself's focus and knowledge to reach that place. And so when one starts to find that they can do that, they start to recognize that the pages inside of themselves are a blessing, that the people that they speak to and the thoughts that they think become manifested. And so when one focuses and one has the extraction of knowledge within oneself to understand that one is sufficient, that you can dominate your being, that you can be the person that you are inside, that the things that you go through and the challenges that you go through on a daily basis, you can overcome. That ability within oneself starts to connect. When that ability inside of yourself starts to reach a level of connection, the universe starts to create ripples. If one starts to reach the place where discipline comes out of that, then what other people start to see is your light lighting up and making their days brighter. So as you allow yourself to utilize the focus and knowledge inside of oneself, to center oneself in a place of discipline, to be in appreciation with this classroom, to be in a place where this classroom is a blessing, to be in a place where these types of challenges you have the ability to overcome, to give yourself that kind of an understanding creates a reflection which creates ripples in this universe. When your whole entire being, your knowledge and your focus is centered inside of yourself, other people see you as a reflection of inspiration. And so when you light up this world as an inspiration, the ripples that come from that level of discipline radiate throughout the universe. They radiate in such a way that the tools that you have become an availability for the mentality to reach the place where this is sufficient. When you reach that, other people can notice within you the light. Other people can notice that their day becomes brighter by you being around. Other people start to recognize that the challenges that they are going through on a daily basis, they can overcome with themselves. When a person becomes that level of sufficiency, the mastery within oneself in the art of the thought process, and the knowledge within oneself in any given subject becomes a mastery. So as we pick one thing to do very well, as we pick one task at a time, and we don't take on too many tasks to reach that place within ourselves, the reflection on the outside starts to come from within. So as we get down with who we are, as we start to get to the place within who we are, as we start to overcome the challenges on a daily basis, the bigger picture from our level of focus and knowledge centered within oneself manifests on the outside. It also leaves ripples which uplift other people. That is the purpose of radiating light in this universe. That is the light from darkness within oneself. To achieve this is to achieve samadhi. To achieve this is to achieve Christ-like consciousness. To achieve this is to understand that it is possible for you to reach a place where being yourself is available to you. When you reach that within yourself, the lights in this world become a little bit brighter. The picture within yourself becomes a little bit sharper. The knowledge within oneself becomes a little more sufficient. And we start to recognize that the challenges that we're facing off against are blessings. When we start to utilize the mass and energy as spoken in Newton's third law of motion in such a way that it manifests itself from your ability to be who you are, the blessings that come in this universe in such a way move the things that are not meant for you out of the way on their own. So if you can connect with yourself, if you can center yourself, if you can achieve yourself, then we need you in this universe. We need your blessings on a daily basis. We need your ability to see that it is an able ability to be who you are. I'm telling you that if you are in the darkness, start with the little things. Start with the ability to put yourself in a place where knowledge and focus start to utilize you. When you center oneself inside of oneself and see that you are sufficient to achieve the ability from your foundation of focus, that the things that you want to become come from within you. The reflection on the outside is coming from within. That is the reason why an inspiration is the reflection of discipline. As we get to the place where these tools start to become possible for us, the universe starts to work in your favor. It starts to move in your direction. It starts to become a part of your daily. The people that are around you will recognize this. The things that you go through on a daily basis become available. The things that you go through weekly, monthly, yearly are no longer a surprise. When you start to recognize the only thing that you can master is yourself, you start to see that you are the only one who can uplift you. You are the only one that can go within you. You are the only one that can utilize the knowledge and the focus inside of the classroom of you. So when you start to recognize this, when you start to get down with yourself, where the things that are going on around you no longer have the ability over you, you master the things that are around you. And so understanding to this level means that one is centered within oneself, that the ability to use the challenges that we face off against are for our positive reaction, positive thought process, positive knowledge, that the reflection comes from within oneself. The light that other people see is you and the knowledge and focus that you have within you. The knowledge and the focus that you have inside of yourself can manifest on the outside as ripples, as the ability that other people will be uplifted by what you are saying, by the things that you are going through, by the challenges that you face off against on a daily basis. And so when you start to achieve this level of centering oneself to that point, the universe starts to work with you. It starts to work as a part of you. You start to become a part of the whole being. When the whole being is connected to you, when the whole being is sufficient within you, when the whole being understands that you have what it takes, the mastery over the mind becomes available. The mastery over the things around you become available. The mastery over the challenges that you go through on a daily basis come from your able mentality, your able knowledge, your availability to go within yourself, your availability to utilize this universe around you, your availability to be who you truly are. And so when you recognize this, when you start to get to this place where what is going on around you is what's going on within you is reflecting outwards, we understand that the manifestation is on the outside, that the focus from within and the knowledge creates those kind of ripples. The mastery of that kind of light can manifest professionals, can manifest artists, singers, writers. Other people see the person who achieves this as a master over oneself in any given thought process. When we understand this, that 1,000 words, 1,000 thoughts, 1,000 paintings comes from 1,000 views, that one's views is worth 1,000 views, becomes a manifestation from within oneself. The connection between focus and knowledge is centered right in front of you. It is within you. It is there for you. It is your ability to get down with yourself. When you start to focus past where other people are willing to go, to do things that others won't do, you can achieve things others won't achieve. And when that reflection radiates outwards, they see you as a reflection of inspiration. They see you as a mastery of understanding. They see you as the knowledge and focus inside of the classroom, and the expansion within oneself radiates outwards. So when one utilizes the tools that they do have, one utilizes the things that they have within themselves, one starts to get to the place where they are lighting up this world, where the things around them are coming from within them. When the things within them are radiating outwards, when they get to that place where they are a master over themselves, the light in this universe radiates outwards from within. And so when we recognize this, when we get down with ourselves to this point, when we start to overcome these kinds of challenges on a daily basis, the manifestation creates ripples around us from the whole entire being. And the things that you do become your whole being. They become a part of you. And so as the things around you start to become you, as the things around you start to happen for you, as the handicaps become a joy, as the things that you do have the availability of you utilizing them, the challenges around you start moving in your direction with the wind. When one turns them to their favor, when the wind starts moving with them, they start to feel that the whole entire being has a place. It has a center. It has a purpose. And that purpose is you. That purpose is the light within you. That purpose is the challenges that you face off against on a daily basis. So when you see this, and I can see this within people as well, when you see this for yourself, when you understand this for you, when you reach that kind of samadhi within oneself, that the centering goes within out, the centering of oneself becomes the whole being. When you start to recognize this, the universe starts to move the things out of your way, or starts to come towards you in such a way that the things around you start to manifest themselves. This kind of mastery is a centering of knowledge and focus to the point where you understand the 3 points of oneself. When you understand the 3 points of oneself, the blessing to have the process to have that ability to utilize this, that ability to get to that place where the reflection is you, that you are the reflection of inspiration, that other people will come to you to see the magnitude within you, starts to become possible. It starts to become a light in this universe. It starts to become a place in this universe. It starts to have a place within you. The challenges, the utilization in this universe, the light to uplift other people becomes available to you. So when you can see this, when you can achieve this, when these things start to happen for you, the light inside of yourself starts to radiate. When it starts to grow within you, the universe will understand this, and it will ask you, and it will test you to see if this is what you truly want. When your knowledge and your focus are centered within oneself, the classroom becomes a blessing. You start to see that you are a blessing. You start to see that the challenges that you've gone through are there for you to overcome. You start to see that you can achieve that kind of a level within yourself. You see that you can become that kind of light on a daily basis, that it is available to you, that you can do this, that you can achieve this, that you can become this within yourself. When you start to see this around you, and it starts to become possible for you, the blessing within you is such a light that other people see you as a tool in this universe. And things start coming your way. Things start asking you if it is possible. Things start to see that you have what it takes. And this universe starts to call you a blessing on a daily basis.